today's meeting of Corporate Policy and Resources Policy Development Scrutiny Panel. I'm Councillor Lawrence Fitzpatrick and I chair this PDSP. The meeting's been broadcast live. A recording will be available afterwards through the Council's website. I'm being assisted today by the Chief Executive and Governance Manager and colleagues from Committee, Services and IT. Some attendees may join the meeting from another location. Everything said while microphones are live will be broadcast and recorded. Members are asked to be polite, respectful and patient. There is more information, including a privacy statement about meeting arrangements on the Council's website. An agenda has been published showing the business for today's meeting. I will introduce each item, and usually a Council officer will speak briefly about the report before councillors ask questions, have a discussion and make any decisions. Councillors may leave the meeting from time to time where they've declared interests that prevent them from taking part. There will be a pause while that happens. They will be invited back in for the next item of business. If the meeting proves to be a long one, it may be adjourned temporarily for a meal or comfort break, and I will see if that's going to happen. Do we have any apologies for absence, please?
Good morning, Chair. We have no apologies this morning, Chair, and all appointed members of the panel are present in Council chambers, but we do have a couple of members joining us online. They are Councillors Sally Pattle and Craig Meek. Thank you. Thank you
very much. Can I ask non-councillors who are sitting at the table to identify themselves and the organisation they represent, please?
John Sivis, Joint Forum of Community Councils.
Thank you.
Stuart Barry, Voluntary Sector Gateway.
Thank you. Jane? Sorry, I'm asking non-members to identify themselves and their organisation.
By unison.
Thank you very much. As we're aware, today's meeting is an essential step in the process which the Council has to put in place to develop and agree its budget for 26-27 and its longer-term financial plan. A consistent commitment has been given to bring information to PDSPs on the responses to the third phase of Your Council, Your Say consultation. The public consultation assists in the prioritisation and allocation of resources to activities which have greatest impact, while ensuring balanced budgets for the remaining 2 years of the 5-year period to 27-28. Considering this detail at PDSP meetings means that West Lothian residents and businesses can see what is being considered before Council makes its decisions about council tax and savings. It also means that organisations and partners who are entitled to a seat at the PDSP can take part in discussions, have their say, have their views noted and taken into account later by councillors. The umbrella organisations entitled to send representatives to all of these PDSPs are the recognised trade unions, the Senior People's Forum, the Youth Congress, any recognised umbrella organisation representing the interests of community councils, the recognised voluntary sector interface in West Lothian, the Race Forum and the Faith Forum. I intimated earlier that all elected members are invited to PDSPs at which responses to the consultation and budget setting for 26-27 will be considered. PDSPs can agree to more participants and I would suggest that additional elected members in attendance at today's meeting be allowed to participate. I trust the panel is in agreement. I see heads nodding. Thank you. There is a big picture about the Council's finances and the pressure on resources and services. Some of that is in the papers in front of the PDSP. However, it is hoped that this PDSP will concentrate more on the service issues which are relevant here so they can be given detailed consideration which they deserve. That is the job which PDSPs have been asked to do. The Phase 3 consultation responses within the remit of the panel are set out at Appendix 2 of the report. Appendix 3 sets out the potential budget saving options for services within the remit of the panel. Please keep this in mind as we go through them. First of all, the saving measures are not proposals which have been made by councillors. These are suggestions brought forward by council officers to try to assist decisions which must be made to allow the council to balance its books. Secondly, none of these have been agreed. Decisions will have to be made by all councillors later in February when the council sets its budget. Some of these proposals may be approved and taken forward, and some of them may not go any further. We have council officers here today to take a note of all discussions and points made by councillors and representatives taking part. There are no motions or amendments or voting at PDSPs. The points made through comments all will be noted. They will then be used for a section in the full council budget setting report about the PDSP stage in the process. We will go through the agenda in the usual way. I will introduce the report, ask officers to speak to it. More than one officer may speak where there is a specialised issue involved. I will then invite questions from everyone at the table in turn. If you have questions, please make sure to let me know. As well as the lead officer who will present the reports, there are officers present who will be able to answer questions about the saving measures and the detailed content of the reports. After we've been through all the measures, I will ask if there are any more questions which may or may not have been missed first time round. Then I will ask for comments. Everyone will have a chance to have their say on the contents of the report. All comments will be noted and reported to all elected members at the full council meeting when the budget will be agreed. Expressing your comments about the budget saving measures is the best way to influence decisions at that time. I trust and hope everyone will help the whole process through a constructive and respectful meeting. If anyone has any questions about the procedure or about what is to happen after the PDSP meeting, please let me know and I will invite the lead officer to explain the process. I now hand over can we confirm the draft minutes of the meeting of Corporate Policy and Resources Policy Development Scrutiny Panel held on 5th December 2025? Thank you. We now move on to the item 5, which is the Revenue Strategy 26-27 and 27-28. Chief Executive. Alistair Black, please.
Thank you, Chair. Council agreed at its meeting on the 25th of February 2025 that officers should consider options to address the Council's budget gap, with options to be incorporated into Phase 3 of the public consultation to be undertaken during the course of 2025. The consultation approach is outlined in Section D3 of the report. Council Executive agreed on 14th of October 2025 the engagement process and timescales for the consultation. 10,051 responses were received. 26% of all comments have been allocated to service areas which are included within the remit of this PDSP. The summary of the comments received in relation to the consultation options being considered by this panel is set out at Appendix 1 of the report. The suggested officer responses to the comments are set out in Table 5 at D3 of the report, and the analysis of all comments allocated to this PDSP is set out in Appendix 2. Officers have brought forward potential savings options, which are set out at Section D4.
Sorry, could I ask for a brief pause, please?
Thanks, Chair. So officers have brought forward potential savings options, which are set out at D4 of the report. These are grouped together in line with the consultation themes: increasing efficiency and developing new ways of working, generating income and reducing spend on non-statutory services. Further detail on each of the options is set out at Appendix 3, which includes the estimated impact on FTE levels and impact on service performance and quality. Integrated relevance, integrated impact and consumer duty assessments are set out at Appendix 4. Comments made by the panel in relation to the potential savings options in this report will be considered when the updated revenue budgets for 26-27 and 27-28 are presented to Council for approval. The revised estimated budget gap amounts to £15.4 million over the coming 2 years. This gap remains provisional as the local government finance settlement and the Scottish budget process remain ongoing. The panel is recommended to note the outcome of the consultation, to note the updated budget gap, to note the savings options relevant to the remit of this panel, to note the relevance, impact and consumer duty assessments, and to note that an updated 2-year revenue budget strategy will be brought to full council later this month. Thank you.
Thank you. I would ask everyone present to give attention to the recommendations outlined in Section B of the report. The revised estimated budget gap is outlined at Section D2 of the report. The gap remains provisional as the local government finance settlement and Scottish budget bill process remains ongoing and is subject to change. I would ask members to recall that Council agreed at its meeting on 25th February 2025 that officers should consider options to address the remaining budget gap, with options to be incorporated into the Phase 3 public consultation to be undertaken during the course of the last and current financial year. The consultation report approach as outlined in Section D of the report. For the third stage of the public consultation, Council Executive agreed on 14th October an engagement process and the timescales. And the response rate was very high, the highest we've ever had. In Phase 3, the consultation comments relative to the remit of this PDSP are outlined in Table 4 at D3 of the report, and the summary of the comments received in relation to the consultation options being considered by the panel are provided in Appendix 1. The suggested officer response to the comments set out at Table 5 at D3 of the report and the analysis of all comments allocated to the PDSP are set out at Appendix 2. Officers have undertaken to identify additional saving measures as set out at paragraph D4 of the report. I would ask that attention be given to the high-level summary of the additional budget saving options relevant to this PDSP by consultation themes as set out in the table contained within Part D4 of the report. These are arranged by the consultation theme. I would ask members to give attention to the information of the proposed additional saving options identified by officers and relevant to the remit of this PDSP as provided at Appendix 3. I would ask you to give attention to the IRAs, the IIAs and the consumer duty impact assessments completed for options being considered by this PDSP, these being included at Appendix 4. As regards next steps, the comments made by the panel in relation to the potential saving options in council services included within the remit of the panel will be considered when the updated revenue budgets for 26-27 and 27-28 are presented to the Council for approval. Thank you very much for listening. Are there any questions to Mr. Black, please? Councillor Campbell, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alistair, for this report. I've got a few questions, if you don't mind, mainly with regard to page 7 and also to Appendix 3. The first box at the top of page 7, the option to increase salary savings by extending employee salary sacrifice scheme of £200,000, and you have indicated 66,000 this year and 134,000 in 27-28. Has that been tested? Has a consultation taken place with staff to ascertain whether this offer will actually be taken up or not?
Could I ask Claire Wallace to respond to that, please?
Thank you, Chair. The consultation hasn't taken place as following the outcome of these decision on these measures. That would be the next step, to move to consultation with our employee representatives. However, we have done some benchmarking with other authorities to look at uptake, and at least 4 were able to provide some information that indicated that there was a reasonable uptake. So we've really aligned our estimates to that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So I think it's fair to say then that this is a guesstimate at the moment. Could I also ask regarding the revenues unit workforce modernisation following retirement? I think some organisations or some people would term this as natural wastage. Now that is in the revenues unit. We know how busy the revenues unit can be, particularly at this time of year. So are we sure that they will be able to maintain the workload they have with a reduction in staff?
Alistair, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I can give that assurance. That reflects the arrangements that are currently in place, which operates through one senior section leader reporting to the advanced collections team manager. So yes, that assurance can be given. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next box, workforce modernisation in libraries and CIS offices, £300,000. I'm presuming this is staff costs. How many staff does that represent?
Julie Whitelaw, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's proposed that this saving would be delivered through a restructure of the service. So we would look at the structure of the service, but then also aligning the service to meet peak customer demand. If the saving was to be delivered purely by staffing, it would relate to just over 7 FTE, but we would look at other options around that as well.
Thank you. And I'm presuming that many of these FTEs will be at the moment employed as part of the community centres in West Lothian. Have staff actually been informed of this potential saving? Because this is going to be quite upsetting for staff.
Chair, none of these staff are in community centres at the moment. This is libraries and CIS. There hasn't been any consultation with staff at the moment as we haven't developed the savings measure, but we will follow the Council's organisational change processes where that's required.
Can I bring in the Chief Exec, please?
Apparently not, Chair. Microphone's not working. I'm sure people will be able to hear me. So just to reinforce that all of the savings that are before you today that involve staffing, where we put a figure in the appendix, it's the maximum number of staff that would be affected, and just to give you the assurance that the Council's no redundancy position pertains to all of those savings which will be made. Thank you.
Involved with this potential saving?
Julie?
Chair, as the proposal has not yet been developed and we don't have an indication as to how what the detail is in terms of delivering that, there's nothing to discuss with the trade unions at this stage. We will obviously follow the organisational change process as and when that's appropriate.
Thank you. So unions have not been involved up to this point. Thanks. Introducing the use of AI council-wide, how many staff does this represent? The figure here is 390,000. So I'm presuming this means that there is a potential staff saving here?
Elaine Cook, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there will be some staff reduction, but that will be as a result of natural turnover with no displacement of staff. The 390,000 that we've identified is just an indicative amount that's based really on research done from savings from other councils where they've been realising that sort of saving from the technology that they've put in place.
Thank you. Again, can I ask, have the unions been involved in any discussions regarding introduction of AI and the potential implications for staff up to this point?
No, we haven't got that far. We're at the very beginning of the journey in AI in the Council.
Chief Executive, please. Just speak to me.
Okay. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, just to underscore again that any change which takes place, which is organisational change, will be fully compliant with the Council's organisational change policy, which facilitates detailed consultation with trade unions as part of any change process within services. And that will happen once a decision is made. The organisational change policy will kick in for all of the changes that involve staff.
Your mic's not live.
In terms of generating income, I am pleased to see that a potential use of council-owned properties and facilities, which has been brought forward by the SNP group repeatedly over the years, is now being considered. However, my question would be, where does the figure of £100,000 come from? Is that also a guesstimate? Have we tested the market to find out if this will actually be something that will be taken up by businesses in West Lothian?
Alistair.
Thanks, Chair. So this is based on benchmarking with other local authorities. A number of areas have been identified where advertising could be taken forward. We need to undertake further detailed information and market testing as the member notes at the moment. However, based on feedback received so far, looking at volumes of traffic and looking at potential scope for advertising, we'd consider the 100,000 to be a reasonable estimate at this point in time for delivery in 27-28, giving time in 26-27 to work through the further detail of this proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alistair. One final question. In terms of reducing spending on non-statutory services, the counter-fraud service, workforce modernisation following retirement, how much fraud is perpetrated against West Lothian Council, and will this potentially have a much greater impact than the savings that are being suggested?
Alistair.
So again, just to give assurance on the fraud team, so following the retirement of the previous fraud manager, there has been a restructure within the team. The headcount remains the same. The governance committee took an update a few weeks ago on the arrangements in place for fraud activity, so that is progressing without any impact from this. So this reflects arrangements in place, headcount hasn't changed, and the ongoing work of the fraud activity remains as you would expect and as the committee has been updated on.
Okay, thank you, Alistair. I think that's all for the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Damien Dorn-Timms.
Chair, thank you. Good morning. It's mentioned on an earlier table, but I'll refer to it as Appendix 3 on page 16, W2A, the increased energy efficiency. A large sum of money over the next 2 years that's going to save. Two questions. I'll ask them all at the same time, Chair, if I may. One is, how is this achieved? And two, why haven't we done this before today?
Alistair.
Thanks, Chair. So this is achieved through a number of areas across gas, across electricity and across water consumption. It takes account of the progress that's been made. So first of all, if I take gas, for example, we've had a review of sites connected to the Council's centralised business management system. We've optimised start and stop times and minimised out-of-hours heating usage. There's been a review of the heating and cooling systems, and that has seen a reduction in gas consumption of approximately 10% since our 24-25 usage in terms of comparison against 24-25 usage. Looking at electricity, there's been significant investment in measures to reduce electricity consumption. That includes replacement of lighting with low energy equivalents. It includes installation of solar PV panels. And it also includes improvements to the operation of the combined heat and power plants. There's been investment in LED lighting works, and further investment is expected and planned for further addressing electricity consumption. Again, looking at electricity consumption against 24-25 levels, that has reduced by 4% across the whole council's portfolio. There's been further work on water charges and significant benefits from one-off refunds in charges over the course of 25-26. So there's further work being progressed in relation to those areas, continued optimisation of LED lighting projects, focusing on water charges and focusing on renewable energy projects. So taking all that together, taking that work that's being progressed, more to follow, and that combined with energy prices, this is the forecast benefit that we expect the council to receive over 26-27, 27-28. So it reflects work in progress and it reflects further work in those areas to follow.
Appreciate that, Alistair. Thank you for the detail. Could any of this have been done before now? I know it's easy to talk about with hindsight, but could any of these savings been introduced in the last year, 2, 3 years or more?
So, Chair, some of the savings are being reflected in our outturn for 25-26. That was reflected in the last monitoring report. So we are seeing the benefits both of the energy efficiency measures that we've put in place, the benefits of cost reduction from the wholesale energy prices, and we will see a continued benefit of that going forward. So progress has been made, progress is being made, and we'll continue to make that progress going into 26-27.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Patel, please.
Hello, thanks very much for letting me participate. I've got questions. Well, actually, Damien's just asked mine about energy efficiency, so that's great. That's taken one lot away. Questions on 2 other elements, and if it's okay, I'll ask them and just run through the paper. Is that okay? Sorry, all of these committee meetings have been run differently, so it's good. It keeps us on our toes. So my first question is about the removal of core elections budget, which appears in D4, but also then on page 22. And I just wondered, in a similar vein to Councillor Doran-Timpson, if we didn't have to pay for this, why have we been?
Alistair?
So just to explain, Chair, the core elections budget, the council has a budget of 15,000 that does not meet the costs of the elections that the council needs to pay for. The costs of local and by-elections are to be met by the council, and those are significantly in excess of the 15,000. The costs are volatile. It depends on what happens year to year. So just to be able to manage that within the budget, what we propose to do is to manage the costs as they're incurred, depending on the elections costs that are faced in year. But given that 15,000 is significantly different from actual costs that we face, we propose to take that out of the budget. That would be neater from a budget perspective, and going into 26-27 we would manage the costs as they're incurred by the council. That would be reflected in our outturn position. I should say for national elections, those costs are met by funding that the council receives, but for local elections, those costs need to be met by the council. So it's a cleaner, neater way of managing the budget moving forward.
Okay, all right, that's brilliant. So then my other set of questions are regarding the libraries and the CIS. So that, it runs through the paper, but I suppose if we go to page 10, 3B, my question, how many standalone libraries are there? And if you close the standalone libraries and move those facilities into other settings, such as partnership centres, what will that specific saving be?
Julie, please.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps for clarification, the proposal is to retain all of our libraries. We're not proposing to close any libraries. We're certainly not proposing to close the standalone libraries. The proposal is to review the structure of staff who support our CIS services and our libraries, and to align the service of our CIS and our libraries to meet peak customer demand, but keeping all of our libraries open.
So how many standalone libraries do we have left in West Lothian?
Chair, there are 4 standalone libraries.
And what would the saving be if you moved those facilities into other settings, such as partnership centres?
Chair, there hasn't been an assessment of the saving that would be delivered in those circumstances. We would need to look at whether or not the buildings could be used for other purposes. we haven't carried out that task.
Might I suggest that would be a good task to carry out when we're faced with such a large budget deficit?
Chair, if that's something that members would wish us to do, then we can certainly do that.
Okay.
It's not a decision
All right.
that can be taken today, as you'll appreciate, Sally.
No, I do appreciate that. Just thought it might have been something that would have been considered when faced with such a considerable gap before now. So moving on then, I think it's page 25 in Appendix 4. And again, it is about libraries. It gets a bit confusing, but I believe that this is H4B and then 1B. I'm not sure what that means, but hopefully that helps you. So I've got just 4 questions. When you talk about maximising your digital stock in libraries, does that mean that you are getting rid of physical stock? And does that include things like access to the newspapers, which a lot of people rely on?
No, it simply means making more use of our digital stock. So, for example, over the last year, we've moved from 30% of our e-books being accessed, beg your pardon, we have moved from customers accessing our stock 30% being e-books, that's now 32% in December 2025. So recognising that increase in customer demand for e-books, we will look to maximise that as much as we can while still retaining physical stock.
Okay, so there are no plans at all to remove access to newspapers. There are no plans at all to remove any physical stock from any library space?
No.
Okay. And you're talking about reducing the opening hours of libraries, but you're also talking about this won't have a negative impact because they'll be able to self-access, self-check-out books. Does that also imply that access to things like the computers will also be available out with official library opening hours? Because obviously that is a service that a lot of people use the libraries for these days.
Chair, if we're looking specifically at library services, we are looking at opportunities to allow customers to self-access. That would include, that would be about rolling out the self-access days that we already have across our libraries. We would look also at the availability of the self-access computers. We would look to align that with availability of CIS and ensuring that there are staff in place to support that. But we will ensure that there is availability of those computers at the times that customers demand that.
And how are you going to ensure that?
Chair, we haven't carried out the detailed evaluation yet. We will be reviewing customer demand, we'll be reviewing footfall in all of our libraries and CIS, and we'll be reviewing demand for the computers in our libraries. The demand for computers in our libraries has been reducing over the years as more people have access to smartphones. They tend to be used more for printing documents rather than for accessing information. So we'll be engaging with those customers who come in to use the self-access computers to identify what it is they're accessing them for, the times that are most suitable for them, and we will look to align the service to make sure that we're matching that demand.
Again, I think the vast majority of people that I come across with in terms of casework who use these services are not people that have smartphones and are not people that have access to the internet out with centres such as libraries. So I'm very concerned that this will have a negative and adverse impact on their ability to take part in modern daily life, including accessing council services, which are increasingly only available digitally. My next question is on the role of CIS. Is the plan to fold it into the advice service? What is the plan?
Chair, no, the plan is not to fold it into the advice service. The advice shop and the CIS carry out very different tasks. So the CIS are effectively the first point of contact for customers where they wish to carry out a transaction with the council. However, the majority of transactions that customers carry out on a face-to-face basis at CIS can be carried out online or digitally. Absolutely accept that not all customers can do that, but we're engaging with our customers to find out from them where it has been a transaction that can be carried out online, what the barriers have been for them. So we have concierge stands in our CIS offices. Our staff will support customers to show them how they can access these services digitally, to support them where there are barriers in terms of their ability to access that, but we will retain the ability for face-to-face engagement with our CIS staff. We will, however, align that to times when customers require that access to CIS. We will also look to introduce digital means for customers to access a CIS officer. So, for example, if they can do that via a web link, it doesn't need to be in person. So we will support customers to access our CIS staff as far as possible, but also support them to access services digitally where that's possible.
Okay. And it says on page 26 that you're going to reduce the service to 3 neighbourhoods. What does that mean? What do you class as a neighbourhood? Is it a ward? And which 3 neighbourhoods are you considering? Where is going to lose the service?
Chair, on paper at the moment, the service operates 4 neighbourhoods, but we actually have 3 neighbourhood managers in post, so it's really just reflecting the position that we have at the moment.
Okay. And you also, it's good to see that you recognise that this is going to have a potentially adverse impact on many users of essential council services and, of course, the frontline staff who will be reading these papers, I suspect, with growing anxiety. So I'm glad to see that you have recognised the need for a full consultation. I'm wondering if you can outline the timescale and how you envisage that consultation possible.
Chair, there are no timescales developed as yet. These are not proposals which have been agreed. Once they are agreed, we will develop a timescale, and as has already been set out, we will follow the organisational change process in terms of engagement with staff and with trade unions.
And how about the users of the services? How will you consult with them?
Yes, as I set out already, it is very important that we do engage with users to ensure that we are capturing the requirements of our users for CIS and for libraries, and we will commence that engagement once the proposal has been agreed.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. And thank you, Chair, for letting me ask the questions.
You're welcome. Jane Ridgway. Sorry, you're very patient, Jane. Good morning.
My question. Something that impact on staff leave time for consultation with the joint trade unions. However, during the last 2 years, the joint trade unions on more than one occasion have had to resort to the avoidance of industrial dispute procedure. We have had to resort to making formal complaints about officers' failure to follow the organisational change policy correctly and a failure to implement agreed outcomes from organisational change. So my question for the Chief Exec is, how will you ensure that the organisational change policy is followed appropriately and as laid out, and that trade unions and staff are involved at the earliest opportunity in consultation?
Chair, thank you for the question, Jane. I think I would like to explore those instances that you have raised there, Jane. I think what might be useful is that I meet with the joint trade unions just to talk through that in advance of the process. So in the next week or so, just to get together and explore those instances which you have raised. But I can give you my assurance that it is our intention to take forward whatever change is required, fully in compliance with that policy. And as I said, if there are issues in terms of how it's been applied previously, to address those to your satisfaction.
Any further questions?
Councillor Kenna.
Councillor Kenna, please. Good morning, Linda.
Most of the questions I was going to ask have been asked. I do have one on 3D, which is, so let me get it. An appendix.
Page. Sorry, which page are you on?
I'll just find it. I had it a moment ago. It's 3D. Here we are. Page 11 of Appendix A.
Page 11. Thank you.
Continuing to support groups in the delivery of community asset transfer. My question really is, if the council, officers have looked at other councils on how they handle their cats, and that's my question.
Okay, David Baird, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, yes, we constantly benchmark with other councils in terms of all our policies and procedures. Community asset transfer is no different from that, and we're always seeking to try and understand whether there's better ways or more efficient ways of working. So the answer is yes, we do that.
Could I further ask, what councils they have looked at, and there is the officer's assessment of their approach?
I don't have those details immediately at hand, but I'm quite happy to circulate them after the meeting, Chair. I know we do that both from individual councils, but also through the Association of Chief Estate Surveyors. So I'll come back with the groups we're particularly spoken to.
Okay, thank you. I had noted that through the libraries, through the different appendixes, that on page 33 to 35, in the mitigating circumstances within the discriminatory or to reduce inequality, that the same reply, it looks as if it's just been cut and pasted for each question. Exactly the same answer has been given to the three questions there. That's just for noting. I did ask at another committee on page 4.3, consultation themed questions results, reducing the number of council facilities. Can you tell me what facilities and buildings are in focus to be reduced?
Chief Exec, thank you. Just speak to him. This mic will pick you up.
It's okay. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so the consultation was based on primarily on principles we were consulting on. So there were no precise assets in there. It was about the principle of asset transfer that was being explored, and asset rationalisation that was being explored in there, rather than a consultation about specific premises. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? Yes, Councillor Mannion, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just clarification on the earlier discussion about libraries. So there are 4 standalone libraries, and there's no intention or proposal to close them.
Sorry, what's your question?
That is the question. That's the question.
Julie, it would be helpful if you'd detail the location of these 4 libraries, if that would help.
I hope I can remember them all. West Calder, Almond Bank, Humferston, and I have failed to recall the final one, but I can circulate that. There are no proposals to close any libraries. The proposal is about aligning the service with customer demand and keeping all of our libraries open.
Thank you. Councillor Kennett, please.
Just on that reply, is the 4th one Craigshill? That's a standalone library, and there has been concerns raised by members.
Almond Bank is Craigshill.
Right, that's fine.
Thank you. Any further questions? Any comments? Doesn't seem to be, so we've noted the paper. Can we move on to item 6, please? Council tax scenarios. Alistair, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this report sets out an appraisal of potential future council tax increases to inform discussions on the approach to achieving a balanced revenue budget and to securing financial sustainability. The report highlights the key principles for considering options for council tax. These principles include supporting the long-term sustainability of essential services, ensuring the council can continue to meet statutory duties and respond to rising demand. At the same time, increases should be affordable and collectible. Impacts on low-income households should be appropriately mitigated. The report sets out the existing planning assumption of a 4.5% increase and provides detail on variations to this assumption, together with the associated levels of projected revenue. In addition, the report sets out further detail on benchmarking and mitigations. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Councillor Campbell, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, Alistair. A couple of questions, if you don't mind. Page 3, D3, council tax assumptions. The 900 new houses will provide additional income of £2.3 million over the next 2 years, and a 4.5% increase in council tax provides a further additional income of £10.4 million over the next 2 years. I'm presuming that both of these have been included in the outcome with the remaining deficit.
Chair, that's correct. That's the baseline planning assumption set out at D3, the 4.5% council tax increase and the additional properties built into that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And page 6, can I just ask about the council tax reduction scheme? It's in place to help people on a low income, single person households with a net income of up to £16,750 and others with a net income of up to £25,000. But as we're aware, the Scottish Parliament, when it set its budget, reviewed income tax bands and rates, and the Scottish Government increased the threshold at which taxpayers pay the basic and intermediate rates by 7.4%. In addition, the income tax rates remain unchanged at 20% and 21%. Now, the Cabinet Secretary did this with the explicit intention of ensuring that many more people in Scotland will pay much less income tax, which means the salaries will be increased, or the take-home pay will therefore be increased. So will that have a bearing on the council tax reduction scheme, because it will take more people above the thresholds?
So, Chair, the council tax reduction scheme assessment is based on income. The changes that the member has outlined relates to the income tax thresholds. That wouldn't impact on total income earned or benefits levels. This is about taxation levels. Each case is assessed based on income available. Those amounts that are set out in the report are not absolutely fixed, so there is some discretion and a review of wider circumstances that are taken into account when council tax reduction scheme is applied. So that's the context for the council tax reduction scheme assessment.
Okay, thank you. So could I just ask Alistair, sorry, just to clarify, so any assessment of what West Lothian Council need to fund the council tax reduction scheme is based on current taxation, not taxation after the 1st of April?
Assessments would be based on the overall income that a recipient has. That would reflect taxation levels at the point in time. But when we're looking at the 16,000, that's before tax is taken into account. It's a wider assessment than just total incomes. So the recipient's circumstances and expenditure levels are taken into account. So it's not as simple as saying that's the new tax rate and therefore this is the impact on council tax reduction. An application is made where the individual's overall circumstances require to be reviewed. Those parameters set out here are indicative levels but are not absolutely fixed.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Conn, please.
Thank you, Chair. Could you clarify on page 5 the statement that there's a current overspend on the council tax reduction scheme, just over £1 million? Does that get supported by the Scottish Parliament, or do we as a council have to find that overspend?
So, Chair, that is a pressure that the Council is faced with. That is one of the pressures that is built into our model for 26-27 and is one of the drivers for the increasing budget gap that the Council requires to address going into 26-27.
So it's partly it's a consequence of a lack of funding from Scottish Government that we need to find this additional resource locally.
That's a wee bit unfair to ask a political question, Councillor Coyne, but the point is well taken. Any further questions? Any comments, please? Doesn't seem to be. Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Damien Doran-Timpson, I'm sorry.
No, sorry, Chair.
You've got to press the button quick.
That was me being a little bit slow with the button pressing. The valuations, I think, in here, the comparisons made, for instance, on Band D between England and Scotland, you're comparing apples and oranges, because you mentioned about the different rates in council tax. But the ones in Scotland are based on properties that were evaluated in 1991, whereas the England and Wales properties were based on valuations done in 2003, 2005, I think it was. So you're not actually comparing like for like. So a Band D house in England, for instance, that you mentioned here, will be significantly valued more than a Band D house in Scotland. I do trust, if this similar paper, which I presume it will, comes to the budget meeting, this difference will be explained in there, and maybe even an average price of valuation of properties will be explained, and you're not just comparing likes banding for banding, which is inaccurate.
Alistair? I presume that's a request.
You're quite right, Councillor Campbell, it wasn't a question, it was a comment.
Okay.
And a request. That's a request isn't a question either. But thank you for your interjection.
Can I say that will be recorded in the minute, and it will be fed back in the full paper that comes to Council on budget day.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? Doesn't seem to be. Any comments? Doesn't seem to be. Can we note the paper, please? We now move forward to the review of discretionary fees and charges, 26-27. Alistair, again, please.
Thanks, Chair. So this report sets out the revised schedule of fees and charges along with integrated relevance and impact assessments. Fees and charges support budgeted additional income of £1.7 million over the period to 27-28. This is based on a standard uplift of 5.5% across most discretionary fees and charges. A number of charges sit outside the standard 5.5% uplift. Those are outlined at section D4 and are listed in the supporting schedules. Those reflect circumstances where a different approach is proposed. Can I draw the panel's attention, please, to Appendix 1, page 18 of the report, the section entitled Community Alarms and Telecare, which has been increased above the standard 5.5% for the majority of fees and charges within the appendix. Benchmarking with other authorities identified an average charge of £5.27. In the current financial year, the proposed increase is 5.5% of the benchmark average identified, rather than a 5.5% increase on existing charges. An update on this increase was omitted from the published report in error. Can I ask that this PDSP documents the omission and considers this change in your scrutiny today? Rob Allen is in attendance to answer any questions that this may give rise to. In conclusion, PDSP is asked to review the revised schedule, and colleagues across service areas are in attendance today to respond to questions. Accordingly, following consideration by the panel, the fees and charges will be incorporated into the revenue budget to be presented to Council later this month. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Any questions, please? Councillor Campbell, please.
Thank you. And I have a few questions, Alistair, so thank you. First question is page 5, the first paragraph, community facilities. Charges for the use of community facilities are obviously increasing from the point where we have become used to, or where the point where all community groups have become used to. And I guess my question is that given that community centres and village halls managed by registered charitable management committees have attracted historically 100% discretionary rate relief, and the majority of management committees have rejected the council's revised model, which is the council operating model. And from the start of the next financial year, which is only a couple of months away, the majority of community centres and village halls will be operated and managed by West Lothian Council under their operating model. What is the estimated additional cost due to rates being payable on these properties starting from the 1st of April and over the next 2 years?
Julie Whitelaw, please.
Chair, there was a report to Council Executive on the 24th of June 2025 which set out the additional NDR pressure of £548,496 at that time. This will be kept under review. There are a number of community centre management committees who are still progressing with proposals to deliver a community operated facility, so we will keep that under review, but at that time the additional pressure was £548,496.
Thank you.
Okay, so the council will, after the 1st of April, have that burden, is what we're hearing, which does eat into the alleged £1.3 million worth of savings that we have previously been told would happen after the 1st of April.
I'll take that as a comment. Any further questions?
I do have some questions from the appendix. In terms of, I don't know if this is Alistair or not, page 10, which is part of the appendix, and it's civic licence fees, houses in multiple occupation, and it has here 5 categories, I think, from 3 to 50 residents up to 200 plus residents. I would imagine that many of these facilities will potentially be bed and breakfast hotels where private sector owners are actually making huge sums of money from West Lothian Council or from public funds. So I would have thought that the increases for these facilities, given that they are commercial premises and that the fees are discretionary, could have been increased by more.
Julie?
Chair, hotels are subject to separate legislation and are not classed as houses in multiple occupation. These tend to be premises that are used for families as their residence. We may use a number of private lets for homeless accommodation. We tend not to use private lets for temporary tenancies which have more than one family group in them. So there may be some premises which are classed as houses in multiple occupation that we will use as emergency accommodation, but we tend not to use them for temporary accommodation, and the hotels that we use are subject to separate legislation.
Thank you. Could you describe then, Julie, what a house in multiple occupation with 200 plus residents is?
Chair, I'm not sure I'm the best person to provide a legislative explanation for that. I'm not sure whether Carol might be able to provide that.
Carol? Our Chief Solicitor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. HMOs take a variety of forms. They can be hotels, they can be large-scale premises which occupy obviously a number of individuals. I don't have the specific statutory definition before me at the moment, but I can find it and share that with members.
I think that would be useful, thank you. Couple of other questions. Page 17, and I'm not sure who would be best placed to answer this. Page 17, caravan and camping, caravan site fees. the proposal is to increase to £36.45. Is this market value? Is this the market rates?
David Moll, please.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm we do extensive benchmarking around all of our charges for caravan and camping. Our rates are in line with market rates. They are competitive, and in terms of performance, we perform very well in meeting our income targets for the caravan park.
Thank you. My apologies. I think there's another couple of questions. In terms of, again, I'm not sure who would be best placed to answer this. Page 31 on Lithgow Borough Halls. I'm very glad to see that following an SNP motion in 2023 that the fees have been increased. The Borough Halls are one of our oldest and, to be honest, most beautiful buildings in West Lothian. Are these fees now full market value or full market rates?
Greg Welsh, please.
Yes, Chair. The benchmarking that's been undertaken is looking at local wedding packages delivered through private commercial industry, and they've been aligned also to ensure that we get full cost recovery. As you'll note on the proposals there with the asterisks, there is also a minimum bar spend condition subject to the let to ensure that full cost recovery is received, and then obviously becoming an income generator for the council beyond that.
I did note that, Greg, and I wondered, it's subject to minimum bar spend. Is that something that is common with these types of venues?
It is, Chair, just to ensure that, as I said, that we get the full cost recovery from the outlay the council has for running that service.
Okay, thank you, and I think that is all of the questions. Thank you, Chair.
Linda Kenna again, please.
Thanks, Chair. My question's on page 11, private landlord registrations. Why is this TBC? There's no information there. Just wanted to know why.
Julie, please.
Chair, I will confirm the figures for 25-26. I suspect the position for 26-27 is that it hasn't been announced by Scottish Government yet. We are subject to fees which are national fees.
We don't set them, Scottish Government, that. Thank you.
Okay. Page 13, it's going on to there's concerns that the rise in fees will impact on the swimming club at Faldhouse that operates, and I just really wanted to know if there is. You've got swimming concessions under 5s and over 60s, but what about a commercial let that's for children swimming club?
Julie?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we engage very closely with the swimming club on the fees which are required. There have been discussions over the year on the fees, and the proposed fee for the swimming club is considered to be a good value for the swimming club. It's slightly less than would be at any other commercial organisation.
Is it affordable? Have you had that feedback, Julie?
Chair, it is considered to be affordable on the basis that it is less than it would be at any other commercial organisation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have another one, but quite a large document. No, I think that's it,
Okay.
Chair.
Okay, Linda, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Tomcon, please.
Thanks, Chair. It's on page 14, road permits and temporary traffic regulation orders. Note that there are some fees which currently are zero and there's a charge coming in. I presume that is to encourage works to be expedited rather than as a purely income measure. It's actually to encourage any disruption to the public footpaths, etc. to be completed as quick as possible.
Oh, sorry. David Moll.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's precisely that. Those fees are designed to encourage contractors or utility companies to plan their works more effectively and not have overruns that disrupt the flow of traffic.
Thank you.
Any further question? Are there any comments? Councillor Campbell, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that thank you for the clarification regarding the amount of rates that West Lothian Council will have to pay for our community centres and village halls. Given that the alleged saving was £1.3 million, I'm just not sure whether this factor has been taken into account. £550,000 or almost £550,000 is a huge sum of money, and I'm not actually sure whether the management committees actually realise that the rates relief will be removed from these premises, and that West Lothian Council will, from the 1st of April, have this additional burden on our expenses.
Thank you. I'll make a comment. I think the head of housing fully explained the rationale and the figures in the paper. Thank you. Any further comments? If there are no further comments, I'll ask you to agree to note the paper. Can I say, I would like to, on behalf of all members and third sector, voluntary sector as well, I would like to thank all officers for the significant amount of work they've done and the hand-wringing and the brainstorming which has been done in bringing these papers forward, because they are so critical to us as a council going forward to set our budget. So I'm sure we'll really appreciate the work which you've done. I'd like that recorded. Thank you. Can we agree the work plan? Are there any questions on the work plan? So can I thank you all for your attendance and have a good weekend.